Welcome. My name is Bob Olson. It's an honor for me to host today's Inside NSU show, and our special guest today is Dr. Downs. Dr. Downs, welcome.
Thank you, Coach.
It's great having you on campus. I know being our 17th president and having a couple weeks under your belt, how are things going, do you feel, to this point?
Everything's great. You know, the people here are just so nice. So welcoming.
Great.
Helping me get settled into the job and learn about Aberdeen and South Dakota, because everything's really new.
Kind of will walk, crawl, run type of thing, isn't it, for you?
Absolutely. So I'm at the phase where I'm holding on to the coffee table as an infant, you know, trying to take the first step away from the table. But it's been great. Everyone's been very accommodating.
Great. I'd like to backtrack a little bit, Dr. Downs, and educate people a little bit as far as your background, your home, where you're from, where you went to school, that type of thing, if you could.
Absolutely. Well, my family, both my mother and father were from the Midwest originally. My dad was born in Kansas and my mom was born in Missouri. They met in Kansas City, and then shortly thereafter, my dad took a job in New Jersey, so that's where I was born.
Okay.
But we didn't live in New Jersey that long. I actually grew up in Maryland as a boy. And my dad worked for Caterpillar Tractor, and we moved around, and he was in sales. So ended up in high school in San Diego. So I'm kind of a bi-coastal person.
Interesting.
But so I've seen a lot of the country. And then when you go out to graduate school, you get another opportunity or two to move around. And then in my career, I've moved as well. So I've seen a lot of the United States, and I have a great appreciation for communities like Aberdeen that are just so embracing of new people.
And you have a wife who is going to be moving here in the very near future?
Yes, sir.
2 dogs?
Yeah, that'll happen in the next week. Everyone will get moved, which is perfect timing because August 15th is in-service week, which starts in the morning when I give a convocation address to the whole community at Northern. So it's very good timing to get everybody here in the same zip code.
Is your wife in higher education, Dr. Downs, or what is her background?
My wife, Mary, she's been in medical sales most of her career. She was a pre-med microbiology major in college and decided not to go into pre-med and go into med school. Then she was in medical sales, owned her own business for a while, has done equipment sales, wound care with hospitals and healthcare facilities, also pharmaceutical sales, and just recently left her job with Blue Cross Blue Shield in Western New York, working on issues with the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so well, she's really very astute, doesn't meet many strangers.
Great. Well, it'll be nice for all of us to meet Mary, and welcome to our community also. You know, it's interesting, Dr. Downs, I looked at your previous history. You've been in higher education for a number of years, and you've had 5 jobs within higher education. And,
Correct.
You know, your most recent job being a provost at Niagara University, which was in Lewistown, New York, I believe, school of 4,200 students. Would you say that is a very comparable institution such as Northern, or not really?
Very similar. Big teacher ed program, just like Northern.
You bet.
Good in the sciences, business school, so a lot of similarities. Northern has some differences that are very impressive. The fine arts here are exceptional, and we've been keeping to invest in the Johnson Fine Arts Center because we want to showcase this dimension of Northern. So that's going to be exciting when we do the grand reopening. But similar size, similar mission, bachelor's, master's degree granting institution.
Great.
Just a great opportunity for me to come here and bring what I've learned at other places to see how I can help facilitate the advancement of Northern to make it even better.
And you were the provost there, and I noticed one of the things that you developed was a teaching and learning center. What was the teaching learning center, Dr. Downs?
Well, my graduate degrees focused a lot on instruction. My master's was in instruction, and then I learned in my doctoral program that it's really important to help young faculty really learn how to be great teachers. What happens in higher education, it's kind of an anomaly. You'll have some faculty from some disciplines that will have never taught a class throughout their PhD program, and then they get hired as a faculty member. Yep. And we give them a schedule and say, here, go teach these courses. Yep. So in order to help them be prepared to succeed and be comfortable with this role of instruction, it's good to have a center where they learn from mentor teachers that have done it for 10, 20 years. They're master teachers. And they learn techniques for how to use technology. They learn how to interact with students, how to set up a syllabus. It's really kind of a way to get them ready to succeed and feel comfortable with the job that they've accepted. So I've always seen it as an important thing to do, because every faculty member that I've ever hired as a dean or a provost, or I'll be a part of in the process of hiring new people here, you want that person to succeed and get tenure and have a long career here. That's the objective.
How hard will this be for you, Dr. Downs, going from being a provost to a president?
It's something that I've been working toward actually since 1996.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I reported to the provost. It was in the Cal State system in Los Angeles. And I went and met with her. I was on her staff, and I said, I want to have a job like yours someday. And she said, "Are you serious?
Why?
Do you know what you're getting yourself into?" I said, yes, I know. There are days that are difficult, but it's really my goal. So, but secretly and privately with my wife, I told her I actually want to be a president. So there's many steps that you have to go through. So I worked as a graduate dean at Emporia State, and then I was a dean of a college at a university called Gannon University in Erie, Pennsylvania, and then went to Niagara University as provost. So I've been learning as much as I can about the facets of higher education and the levels of the institutions and how a university runs.
That's one of the things that I was so impressed with your resume, Dr. Downs, is you taking the correct steps or opportunities to prepare yourself. And that is so important. It's interesting, you mentioned Emporia State. A lot of the northern people will recognize Kay Schellenkamp, who was the president at Emporia when you were there. She since has left and became the president of Black Hills and since has retired. But a lot of people will recognize Kay's name, and you worked for her at Emporia State, which is kind of ironic.
Absolutely, and she did a great job. You know, at Emporia there was a lot of things that needed to be worked on, and she was a very strong advocate for Emporia, and has since come back to, because South Dakota is her home state. So she got the opportunity to be a president in her home state. And there's other people that I met while I was at Emporia State that were northern students. In fact, one of them just stopped by my office the other day.
Isn't that something?
She's retired now out in Spearfish. Her name's Claudia Dempsey. Got her degree from the School of Education, and just stopped by unannounced because she still has family in Aberdeen.
Wow.
So we reconnected last week. It was great to see her.
You know, it's hard for people to understand, but it's a small world in higher education, isn't it really, Doctor? It just, you know, just amazing how many times you run into those situations. It's pretty neat.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, every time I talk to people, I say, well, do you know? Oh, yeah, or I know somebody that worked for them.
You bet.
In fact, when I was looking at the northern job, I called a friend of mine, and I was just talking to him, and he said, so what's happening? And I said, well, I'm a candidate for the northern job. And he says to me, well, I used to work with Jim Smith. I said, so Dr. Smith and I are old colleagues. I said, wow, that's great. So I actually called Dr. Smith and just asked him, you know, how things are at Northern, and he gave me all thumbs up. He said, it's a great place.
Great.
It's a great community. The people at the university and the community are wonderful. And that made me even more excited to know that a colleague that I could really, was objective, said, this is an opportunity you should really look at.
That's great. You know, I want to jump to the interview process, because that's always interesting for a president's job and the northern job. The committee makeup is pretty unique, isn't it? It's just not the Board of Regents, it's community members, it's members of the faculty at Northern. You might talk a little bit about that if you could.
Well, it's a great cross-section, because you're right, there's people from the community that are vested in the success of Northern. A couple of faculty members, which I think is really important, because when you look at an institution of higher education, when the institution is going to change something like an academic program, it's really the faculty that have to figure out what should the program be in the future versus what it is right now. And then they have to go in and do all the work to transform this degree program or develop a whole new degree program into something that is going to prepare our students for the future. So it's great to have faculty members on there. So we had two great faculty members on the committee, and Aaron Foberg and Sarah Schmidt, and then
A very active community group too, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Downs, I know.
People, let's see, Rod Tobin,
Yep.
Jim Thayers, Rod Foberg,
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans. I mean, it's just and all just really great, genuine people that are vested in the success of Northern. And that's what I sense that right away, because the first phase of the interview is an airport interview.
In Sioux Falls.
Right.
Yep.
So they fly 10 or 12 candidates in and interview them over 2 days. And then everybody goes back home, and then you wait. Well, pretty quickly they called and said, do you want to come to a campus interview? And I was really excited just because of the energy in the room and the synergy of, in fact, I had trouble telling who worked on campus and who was from the community, and who was on the Board of Regents versus either of the other two. They were all just really focused on, let's find the right person for the job.
You know, I was really surprised, and I think I shared this with you. I went to the community forums for the candidates, and I was really shocked at the number of people from the community that took part in that. I mean, I would have thought 10, 12 people. There must have been 50, 60 people there. I was really surprised.
You and me both,
Yep.
because I expected what you expected, and then I came around the corner because it was in the Lincoln Art Gallery, and I kind of, whoa, look at all the people. There are a lot of people here, but that sent a message to me that this university is really owned and appreciated to the highest degree by the community, which is one of the best situations that you can ask for if you're coming in as a new president.
It's interesting that you've gotten that sense already, that the community and the area really cares about the university, and that is something that I've always just felt so strongly about, and maybe even take for granted sometimes, but it's such a unique thing. And I'm sure, Dr. Downs, you know, it's interesting, when we hired people on the athletic side, they'd come in and they'd say, I've never been in a place where people care so much.
Right.
Not just faculty, but community members. And it's really a great thing, and something we have to continue to work at, don't we, all the time?
It's a treasure.
Yep.
And that relationship, it is a relationship. It's no different than, you know, a relationship with a spouse or your family members or your best friends, because we all live in this community and we all cherish the community. So how do we work together to sustain the community, to keep it the highest quality, and to make sure that it grows, but it grows intentionally and in a planned way? You know, so the university has to always look at what we're doing and how is that going to impact the Aberdeen community and the region and the state of South Dakota, and really make sure that we stay in consonance and some sort of sync with where the community thinks that we should be as well. So as much as possible, I'll be out in the community to meet people and hear their opinions, but everybody I've talked to so far just says Northern's great.
Good.
I mean, I'll be in the grocery store and somebody will walk up to me and say, you're the new president. And I thought I was in disguise. I had my baseball hat on, but no, it's just people are very aware of the university and supportive of the university.
You know, when you went through the on-campus interviews, Dr. Downs, did you get a gut feeling shortly after your interview process that we would be a fit here, or did it take you a while to get that kind of a gut feeling?
I had the feeling in Sioux Falls, and then when I came to campus, the way it worked is all three candidates flew in on a Sunday, and then there were different committee members there. For me, it was Cindy Walsh was there as my host, along with one of our students, and they were hosting me for the Sunday afternoon to kind of show me around. But just the energy, even at the airport, everybody was so excited that here's the potential presidents. And then when they showed me around and they took me to dinner, and people from the community took me to dinner, Art and Maggie Russo took me to dinner, I was like, this is just a real genuine group of people.
Great. That
are so down to earth and just candid and honest and forthright. I thought, this is where I want to be. I mean, by Sunday night, I thought, oh, I hope this works out.
It felt like a fit. That's great to hear. That's great. You know, it's really interesting, Dr. Downs. You've been on the job a short time, but what has been your immediate goals, your short-term goals? Just trying to get to learn people and that type of thing, or?
Right. I describe it as asking a lot of questions, because I've been other places, and what has worked other places may not work at all here, or it may only work in part, or maybe it will work completely. We could just adopt a practice or some sort of process, and it would really help us move forward. But so in order to do this appropriately, I just have to go and ask a lot of questions. Tell me a little bit of the backstory, what we're doing, how it works. Do you think it could be better? Do you think it needs to be different? Does it need to change in the future? Or is it something we think that we can sustain? So it's really a kind of a Q&A tour,
Sure.
finding out where we are to get to know the people, which has been great, and the commitment level to the success of Northern. And if you have that, people that committed to the success and open to maybe some new ideas or things being changed just a little bit, you can make a great change. And every place in higher education, private, public, big research schools or schools the size of Northern, we're all searching for the next batch of students.
Yep.
We're all really focused on enrollments. So it's a national trend, because the numbers of students that are graduating from high schools that are going to college is pretty much the same, and in some areas it's dipped. So we're all fighting for the same students. So
That was one thing I noticed in the community interview, the community forum thing. There was a lot of universal questions about enrollment, wasn't there?
Right.
I mean, that people want a magic formula. Boy, we want to just turn on the enrollment right now, and we have to know it's just not a presidential issue or admissions issue. It's a
Right.
whole Northern issue that we have to come together and work on, don't we?
Well, everyone owns the enrollments. Now, we hire an admissions staff and people to supervise them to go find the students. But once that student says, I'm kind of interested in going to Northern, as soon as that happens, whether they sent us an email, they went on the website, they came to a college fair in Minneapolis or Sioux Falls, however you find them, then we're all charged with bringing them to campus, getting them to come and visit, and then making sure that their visit really is a great visit.
Yep.
So they could then visualize themselves as, I think I could come to Northern and be here for 4 or more years to get 1 or more degrees. It's about getting them as young adults to feel that level of comfort, that intuition that I felt as an interviewee, as a candidate. I think I want to come here. It's the same experience.
And then retain these individuals, give them the kind of experience that
Right.
they want to stick around, you bet. It's really interesting because you have a provost and an LFA that has such deep roots to Northern.
Right.
Have you found that to be very helpful or quite helpful in a sense?
It's an exceptional opportunity for me, because Al was a student here, and then he went to graduate school, and then he ended up coming back here. He's been here for over 20 years. And
Very well respected, and you bet.
So for me, if I was going to write the script for success and of the first year and beyond, to be have a good first year as a president, it would be to have people like Al.
That's great.
He's a great person. He's very well regarded. He's a good critical thinker. He knows the campus. He knows the people. He knows the community, and he's worked his way up. He's
Yep.
earned his position. He was a dean and very successful in the fine arts, and the fine arts are one of the strong points here.
You bet.
So I've been very thankful to have Al at my side. I ask Al questions. I say, Al, you have to give me the backstory. You have to help me out. I always describe it as coming in, you parachute into the campus, and I land on the lawn, and I roll up my parachute, and now I have to look around, who's going to help me to figure out where do I store my parachute, where do I plug in my computer, and who do I start to meet with to figure out how I can help facilitate even more success here.
It's a great analogy. Al will be, he's a superstar. He's a great person. So,
Yeah.
It's interesting, Dr. Downs, because as a president now, you work a lot with the Board of Regents and you work a lot with the administrative side of things. Will student input play a role into how you run the university? Is that a big thing to you as far as what students feel, think, want, that type of thing?
It's critical because they're our consumer. You know, the students come here and they come here for a degree. That's the obvious. But you were in athletics. And when they come here as a student athlete, they came here maybe to be an athlete, but then they also learned that they had to be a student. But in athletics, they do a great job here because they have a great GPAs by team and the students graduate. But the student experience is critical. So we have to constantly ask, how do we improve the student experience? Because it's really all about the students.
Yeah.
Now,
it's an awesome responsibility, isn't it, when a student comes and parents drop them off and they say, here.
Exactly. The parents are entrusting us to be their new family. So when I, really got to know Northern, I saw, wow, it's a family environment. It's that level of commitment to each other to sustain, I call it a really safe learning community, place where people feel comfortable.
Yep.
So we want them to feel that when they come to campus, and we want them to feel that as they transition away from their home, their bedroom, that they had all their stuff, and everything was familiar. They move here and they feel very hesitant. Now, they don't want to let anybody know that.
Yep.
I didn't when I went to college. I'm like, oh, I got this. It's fine. But the reality is they're in a lot of turmoil. So it's our job to help them get here and get settled in the residence halls. Get them involved in activities. Because student life and student activities are extremely important. Because as a student gets more involved on campus, they're now going to feel that this Northern community replaces the community they came from. They'll still miss their home and their family. We don't want to deny them of that. But we want this to be their place, that this is where I live, and this is where I learn, and this is where I'm making new friends. They're going to be my lifelong friends. They're going to be the people that I call on the phone and say, hey, I'm thinking of a new job. Do you know of any opportunities? And they help each other through life.
You bet.
So it's a huge responsibility for us. And our job is to help them settle and feel psychologically, just really at ease about this process of becoming a college student. And then student affairs helps, athletics helps, their art teachers, their fine arts teachers, and any faculty member is going to help them by just being available. And all the faculty I've met, they're those faculty that will be available for the students. And then we get them on a path and we say, okay, now what do you want to do? What do you want to learn about? You're going to take some general education courses, and that's great. But what's your major? And they don't know.
Yep.
Or they're going to change their minds. So now it's our job to kind of take them through this process of figuring out what they're interested in, figuring out what they want to major in, and then figuring out what they want to do with it. And then we help them launch. And they get their first job, which may not be their ultimate career, but then they have the skills to then get a career and build a pathway moving forward. They become lifelong learners.
Yep.
They become people that go and make an impact in the communities where they live because of the community where they were raised in their youth and as young adults in college. They start to see this is how a community should be, and this is how I'm going to make my community where I move. And so our job is huge. We're doing this transitional process for young adults, and they're the next generations that are going to take over our country. So that's how seriously I take this.
That's great.
Because, when you and I retire, what do we want to do? I don't want to worry about, does that next generation, do they have it? Do they have control of our communities, our politics, our budgets, our healthcare systems, our educational systems? We want to know that we can go fishing. Yep. And we can go bowling, and we can go on vacation and be retired and not have to worry about, will they, sustain the greatness of our communities and our country.
I get asked the question quite often about the Johnson Center, and I get asked the question, will there be a grand opening for the community and the region to be able to come in and see that facility? Yes. I was snooping around here a while back and went in there, and I was just taken back at the work that's been done in there and the changes, and it is just really nice. But is there something in the works, Dr. Downs, for people that they'll be able to come and see that?
It should be announced very soon.
Good.
and it's going to be a great event.
It's neat.
Because taking that facility, which before it was reconstructed and had several additions to it, it was an exceptional facility for an institution the size of Northern. I mean, the size of the venues for performing and are just, it was exceptional.
Yeah.
So then you take that and you add the addition and the Black Box Theater and then all the renovations to the existing space. It's really something to be proud of. And I know people that I've talked to in the community are equally excited because there's so many performances there that the members of the community come to.
You bet.
And so it's the Fine Arts Center for Aberdeen.
Yep.
And I know there are other venues, but it's pretty much the biggest center.
You know, Dr. Downs, that's one of the things that we try to always educate people in the community. You know, sometimes you talk about recruitment or retention or even recruitment of faculty. We can't change our location, but one of the things we can do is improve our facilities. And that's really important, and that's one of the things that's really been neat and it's been done. New dormitory being built. I know that won't be up and going this year, but hopefully a year from now it'll be up and going for our students. And those things are critically important, and it's good to see those done. So you bet.
It's what we have to do to remain competitive.
You bet.
Northern hasn't had a lot of new buildings. The Fine Arts Center, the addition was one thing. The Barnett Center, there was an addition, but this residence hall, and we're just starting the early conversations to build a campus master plan, which will say what other buildings do we need. You know, we may need another residence hall because that's what draws students.
Yep.
Students want to move into a residence hall that's very similar to the bedroom that they left.
And the food.
And
food service.
Food second.
Yeah.
And then they want to look at facilities for recreation. So it's good that there's been a lot of investment in the Barnett Center. And there's several other things they'll look at, the extracurricular, the programs. And then somewhere in there they say, oh yeah, and they also have the degree program. But those are the big 5 things that the students look at. So every one of those you have to look at as an institution and say, how are we in comparison to the people that we compete for these students?
Yep.
And we're constantly having to up the bar and judiciously invest in the infrastructure. But
if we're not going forward, we're going backward type of thing. You bet.
Right.
Higher education.
But the thing about higher education, that's become this trend that it's about facilities. But the reality is, if you go back to Plato's time, he didn't have a building. He didn't have PowerPoint. He didn't have graphics. And there was people exchanging ideas to engage in learning. So it's always going to boil down to the people.
Yep.
The faculty, the staff in all areas, the coaches, the counselors, the facilities people, everyone that works at this institution, and I've sensed this, really wants to see the university succeed. And as you see a student that may be struggling, every one of us is empowered to go to that student and say, can I help you? Is there something that I can do for you? Can I get you to someone that maybe you can talk to because you're having a bad day? And that one moment can change the life of that student because they actually see that we're true to our commitment. And you get them, because they're worried about something back home and they've only been here 6 weeks and they see that we care. And now they're going to stay. They're not going to go back home that weekend and stay and never come back. It's that finite of an opportunity for that student's success. Every moment counts.
People caring about you. That's
Absolutely.
for sure. You bet.
So facilities are great, and we'll keep building them, but it's all about the people in the facilities and engaging each other to be a part of a great learning community.
That's great. Well, we sure want to welcome you and your wife, Dr. Downs, to our community and the Northern family. We sure look forward to your leadership and just know you're going to do a great job. And it's great having you here, and I sure appreciate your time today to take your time and do this TV show. So.
Well, Coach Olson, I'm very pleased that you could do this interview. You're one of the people that I've heard is described as one of the icons in the community and on the Northern campus, and You had a big summer as well. You were put into the Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you.
And that's something that only happens to a select group of people. And having interacted with you a few times, I can see why. So I'm glad that you stay active in the community and continue to be a part of the northern life.
This Northern University means a lot to a lot of us, so thank you for those kind words, and good luck, Dr. Downs.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, you bet.
Yeah.